What up, Leaguers? Welcome to the Spectacular Spoiler League. I'm the Pandan Superman, the mayor of Hype City, Hazy Rome. And as always, I'm joined by the God of Night, the Prime Minister of Post-Production, Deep Boyce. And today, we're in the Hall of Spoilers to talk about something we haven't talked about since we started this YouTube channel. It's been a long time. We're here to talk about Star Wars, baby. We're here to talk about Star Wars, man. I mean, it's not necessarily about The Last Jedi, but it definitely is about the upcoming movie and the Star Wars saga. But in particular, we are here to ask the question, the essential question, who is the chosen one in Star Wars? Okay? Now, this may be a simple answer for some of you guys. Some people, you might be out there like Darth Vader, easily, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know about that. You know why? Because Deep Boyce, Entertainment Weekly, Mark Hamill, they sat down to talk, and Mark Hamill gave us some insight into The Last Jedi in terms of Luke's mindset coming into the movie. So, I'm going to hit you guys with the quote, courtesy of Entertainment Weekly and Screen Rant as well. Thank you guys for providing us with this information, because me and boys out here thirsty for some Star Wars information. But anyway, this is from Mark Hamill. He said, Luke made a mistake in thinking that his nephew was the chosen one. So he invested everything he had in Kylo, much like Obi-Wan did with my character. And he is betrayed with tragic consequences. Luke feels responsible for that. That's the primary obstacle he has to rejoining the world and his place in the Jedi hierarchy, It's that guilt, that feeling that it's his fault that he didn't detect the darkness in him until it was too late. So, Luke out here talking some craziness right now, according to some people, okay? Because he's out here saying he thought his nephew was the chosen one. We like, why? Your pops was the chosen one. Deep Boyce, man, we got to figure this out. We need to go through the people that are alleged chosen ones in the Star Wars lore and figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay?
We're gonna give the definitive answer at the end of this video.
No, we're not. Don't lie to people. Don't lie to people, because we don't even know. We're gonna try, though. We're gonna try. So first up, man, let's start with the man who started it all, man, Mr. Born of Midichlorians himself, okay? Anakin Skywalker, man, child of the Force,
yes,
allegedly.
The
Immaculate Conception.
The supposed chosen one.
The supposed chosen one, according to Luke Skywalker. Now, I don't know, I mean, what's? Oh, okay, so Anakin Skywalker in the original trilogy, okay, Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. There's no reference to him being a chosen one. The term chosen one is never used. Yep. Okay? They talk about maybe, Luke Skywalker being the last hope, and we're going to get to Luke in a second, or Leia being last hope, because it's kind of alluded to that, she's potentially one of the hopes. But, we don't necessarily hear anything about a chosen one, any prophecies or any, Force magic going on in the background. The Force trying to manipulate things to send the galaxy a savior. But it's the prequels, the much maligned prequels. People hate on the prequels. But the prequels introduced the notion of there being a Jedi prophecy about a person, an individual who would bring balance to the Force. Okay? We don't really know much about the prophecy other than that, that notion. But, Qui-Gon Jinn, master to Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace, believed Anakin Skywalker to be the chosen one. Now, they start, talking about the science of, being force sensitive with midichlorians and stuff like that. And essentially, Anakin Skywalker has the highest midichlorian count they've ever seen. Okay, they've ever seen. This guy has ridiculous amount of midichlorians as a child. And according to his mother, Shmi Skywalker, she says that he did not have a father, that she, immaculately conceived this child. So Darth Vader Anakin Skywalker is believed to be the chosen one. And with the Star Wars saga concluding with, I should say chronologically, not in terms of release order, but when you look at the Star Wars timeline, Darth Vader's story ends in Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Now, he ends up killing Palpatine, and a lot of people seem to think that this is the confirmation that he was, in fact, the chosen one. Although he fell to the dark side, he did ultimately kill Palpatine and bring balance to the Force. But that is the essential question. Did he bring balance to the Force? Is he the chosen one? Like I said, there's no way to really know. It's never explicitly stated in Star Wars lore that he is, without a shadow of a doubt, the chosen one.
Yeah.
It is implied thematically when you look at the original trilogies and the prequels, but it is not necessarily confirmed.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, crackpot, Qui-Gon Jinn really believed it within his souls. His midichlorians were vibrating. He felt, this kid, this is the one that's been prophesized. And people are wondering, what prophecy are you talking about? He could have just made it up. And no one really, I mean, people don't really, like Hazy said, confirm that prophecy. Obviously, you have certain constraints because you're making a prequel and George Lucas is trying to tell a certain type of story. So maybe that was a prophecy that was existing for a period of time. But it still stands that we're not entirely sure. There could be some sort of twist coming at some point in time where Anakin he was a powerful Force wielder, Force user.
Definitely.
But not necessarily,
without a doubt.
Yeah, not necessarily the one. And not only that, but then there's the issue of whether he brought balance to the Force, whatever that may or may not mean.
So that's the question right there. That's an essential question. Yeah. What is balance to the Force? Like, what does that even mean?
See, now that would be harder to argue than whether or not Anakin is the chosen one, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because that can mean almost anything. I mean, I personally don't think he brought balance to the Force.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Because I mean, he fell to the dark side, for starters. And yeah, I guess in terms of a technicality, he dealt the killing blow to Palpatine. He just kind of just threw him over. But he was working with him the entire time. And I don't know, that almost seems a little bit weak to say, oh, wait, just when you thought it was all over, he kind of came in last minute and just kind of did a little something to kind of bring balance to the Force. And as we see in the current trilogy, what balance there? It's unbalanced yet again. So was he truly effective? What was the prophecy for like a specific period of time, and it expired after a couple of years or something? I mean, that doesn't exactly hold up. That idea that Anakin really brought balance to the Force. Or maybe I'm just looking too much into it, but personally, I don't really think so.
So we're gonna come back to the idea of balancing the Force, because that's I'm starting to believe that he did not, in fact, bring balance to the Force, and that the idea of what balance to the Force actually means is going to change with this sequel trilogy, with The Last Jedi and Episode 9, when that comes out. Now, let's move on to the next option here. You know, somebody very close to Anakin, okay? Luke Skywalker. Now, the reason why we ask this question, you might be saying, Luke Skywalker's not the chosen one. No way! I don't know why you sound like a 1930s villain in my head, but, Luke Skywalker, and this is kind of from Rebels, okay? Rebels, the animated series, a canon animated series, in which Obi-Wan encounters Darth Maul. They fight. He kills Darth Maul. Spoilers. Sorry. It's over. You guys should have watched it. Spectacular spoiler, people. Come on. So, Darth Maul's dying, and he looks up at Obi-Wan. He says, why are you here, essentially? Tell me, is it the chosen one? And Obi-Wan goes, yes, he is. He is the chosen one. And you see him later on watching over Luke Skywalker. And the implication here is that Obi-Wan, at the very least, believes Luke Skywalker to be the chosen one. And, that thematically is sort of played out in the original trilogy, where he is seen as the hope for the galaxy, this last hope, for the galaxy in terms of who can fight Darth Vader. And now, you may be saying to yourself, oh, well, he's not the one who killed Palpatine. No, but he was instrumental in rebalancing Darth Vader and his connection to the Force by bringing him back over and realizing that, Darth Vader, was wrong in the actions that he took. Yeah. He helped Anakin Skywalker realize who he was.
Moreover,
to remember himself.
I also add this, that maybe... I guess, actually, this kind of contradicts what I just said. But maybe that balance that Anakin was supposedly going to bring was not in anything he would do necessarily, but it would be in him having that son, bringing forth the chosen one. Maybe
that's an interesting interpretation.
Yeah,
that's an interesting. I never thought of it that way. I was gonna say that maybe Anakin being a child of the Force by Luke bringing balance to him, maybe it's more of a theoretical interpretation where Luke brought balance to this physical manifestation of the Force. But once again, there's this theory is arguably reaching a little bit because thematically, once again, episodes 1 through 6 seem to allude to the fact that Darth Vader ended up closing the circle of starting out as a Jedi, being seen as his hope, falling to the dark side, and coming back to the side of light. Also, the fact that Mark Hamill's out here like, Luke Skywalker thought Kylo Ren was the chosen one seems to imply that not even Luke thinks he's the chosen one. So why would he be searching for another chosen one if that
could also be something thematically in the upcoming movies that maybe he is the chosen one, but he doesn't see it within himself. He doesn't believe it. I mean,
that's a good point.
He feels he's not the chosen one because he failed in trying to redo or build up the Jedi Order, the Jedi Academy, and have apprentices and students to teach under him, and it all went to shite, so to speak.
To shite, yes, so, definitely.
And obviously, there's still a lot that we don't know yet, but we definitely have a lot more information and a lot more of a history and legacy with Luke than we do with the next two characters, which we'll mention really soon. in
the next couple minutes, next minute or two.
In our theory. And Luke wasn't very instrumental in episodes 1 through 3. He was sort of in episode 3, I guess you could say.
He was a baby.
He was a baby. And he was the main character in 4 through 5, and he is still
4 through 6.
I'm sorry. And still in these movies, 7, 8, 9, and whatever comes into the future, he's still instrumental and still pivotal. So that idea is still not out of contention because he's still in the movies. He's still in the race for this idea of the savior, of being instrumental in fighting off the dark side, fighting off the Sith, the First Order, whomever it may be.
That's a great point. That's a great point, and it may tie into the next two characters we're going to bring up. I'm going to bring them up simultaneously because y'all know, but that this is where we're going. We're going to Kylo Ren. We're going to Rey. The two big Force wielders, the only ones that we know confirmed right now as Force wielders, other than Luke Skywalker and Snoke, because I believe they have confirmed that, who are seemingly the future of this, this war between the dark and the light. And with Kylo Ren having, Luke believe him to be the chosen one, him ultimately falling to the dark side, echoes the shades of, it's got shades of Darth Vader. Now, Kylo could very well come back to the light and help bring about this quote-unquote balance to the Force according to this prophecy, this elusive prophecy. But you got Rey out here who seemingly has a ridiculous sense of Force-wielding powers early on. And Force Awakens, that's probably one of the biggest complaints you hear, other than The Force Awakens being a lot like A New Hope, which is that she seemed to have a crazy handle on her Force powers. Now, I want to tie this back into this notion of what you talked about with Luke and bringing balance to the Force and him potentially being the chosen one, even though he doesn't necessarily see it. With Luke, he's telling Rey that the Jedi must end. And a lot of people are thinking that what Luke is going with is a balance between the dark and the light. Somebody who isn't necessarily on either side of the playing field, but takes, hints from both the Jedi and the dark side to create a stronger being. Now, Luke could very effectively bring balance to the Force by introducing this new type of Force wielder into the Star Wars lore, because by bringing balance to the approach to wielding the Force and setting up an apprentice who can act in that way, he would essentially be balancing the scale. So it's very, I didn't think of it that way going into this conversation, but Luke could end up being the chosen one in that respect.
Yes,
that being said, with Luke training Rey, and Rey being the seeming inheritor or the seemingly chosen person to be this new balanced Force wielder, they may even be pointing to Rey as the chosen one. And with her crazy understanding of the Force, it's possible that she has a connection to the Force in a way similar to that to Anakin's connection to the Force. Maybe she has some type of connection to the Force through her origins. And, there have been multiple theories out there. We've even done a video, which we'll include as a card above in this video, and as, an end card to this video, which we've talked about potential theories for Rey. Some people say she's Obi-Wan's, family member. Some people say she's a Skywalker. There's also two prevalent theories that say, one, she's a reincarnation of the... I'll say this. I was going to say of Darth Vader. And I'm going to say Darth Vader for now. But I'm going to elaborate by saying that Darth Vader, in this theory, is just one of many manifestations of the Force. Mm-hmm. So essentially, think of Darth Vader as like Avatar, the last Airbender, okay? And Rey would be Korra, the next incarnation of the Force, Darth Vader having been killed. So there's that theory. There's also this other theory that's a little bit out there, but there's this theory that, essentially there is a reincarnation cycle where there's a dark Force wielder who's reincarnated and a light Force wielder that's reincarnated. Darth Vader being this reincarnation of that dark side Force wielder, and Rey now being the reincarnation of this light side Force wielder. I don't believe that second theory to be true according to what we're getting from The Last Jedi, because I do believe the idea of balance is important. If you have if you have this person who represents light, and one that represents dark, that doesn't really give the idea of balance to me, unless Kylo is this manifestation of the dark side, which is possible. Yeah. But I think that balance, if you're talking about the good side winning and there being balance, I think that balance comes with having someone who takes elements from both the light side and the dark side of the Force to become a force for good in the universe without necessarily skewing either towards being, a Jedi where it's like no attachments, no love, nothing like that, or no, intimate love. Or, go into the other side where it's like power, rage, hunger, greed, fear, anger, all that other stuff. So I think, it's very possible, now that you're talking about it, that Rey or Luke could very well be the chosen one. And who knows, maybe even Kylo. Maybe Kylo comes back around. Yeah. But, what do you think about all this, man?
I'm right there with you. As we were talking about this, I'm kind of leaning more towards Luke maybe being the chosen one, even though I have a good feeling he's probably not going to be, and obviously they haven't really said it. He doesn't believe it himself. But
sure, I believe that. I believe that they are leaning very hard on.
But I think this theory that we just kind of are really developing as we're talking about, where I feel it would really reconcile all these rumors that we're hearing, where Luke or Rey is the manifestation or reincarnation of the light side of the Force, and Kylo is, the manifestation of the dark side of the Force. And I guess Luke is the arbiter by which he brings the balance, to the light and the dark side. Where, I don't know, maybe they both work together, or they both come together to build the new Jedi Order. With, they both have differing philosophies that can come together and work to create a new way for Force wielders.
Now that is right there is a fantastic idea.
Hey.
Like, what if Kylo is this manifestation of the dark side, Rey is a manifestation of the light, Luke brings them together. That is a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Brings them together to form this new order. So there is a redemption for Kylo. There is, a chosen one-esque, idea for Rey, but Luke's role or purpose is to bring both of these two together. That would be very interesting. And, tying back into the question of what is balance, man, what is balance in the Force? I've always thought there was a weird interpretation of balance with the original 6 movies, because I always thought to myself, like, balance to me is when you think of, things on a scale, you think the scales being even with each other, right? Things that weigh the same thing on either side. But the issue with the balance of the Force at the end of the quote-unquote balance of the Force at the end of Return of the Jedi is that it's not quite balanced, in that yes, you know, it's no longer balanced in favor of the dark side with Palpatine and Vader both being eliminated. But there's a little bit too much on the Jedi side right now, too, because, you know, you got Luke here and him starting a new order. And I always thought that, you know, listen, if you're talking about the state of the galaxy, you're talking about which side you'd rather the scales be in favor of, I'm pretty sure we're all sitting here like, yo, I'd rather the Jedi, you know, be, you know, the ones, you know, in power. But as you see with the prequel trilogy, the Jedi running things isn't necessarily the best thing either. And as we've seen with the fall, or we will see with the fall of the Jedi, the new Jedi that Luke was starting, that didn't exactly go the way it was supposed to. And I always thought the notion of balance, as Star Wars fans perceived it, was more of an imbalance, just a favorable imbalance, as opposed to an unfavorable one, with the dark side being in control. So this theory that you posited sounds, I mean, yes, it is an idea of, you know, there being good, you know, an idea of the good being more pervasive. Mm-hmm. But I do think that if the good side of things did take elements of the dark side of the Force, you know, for example, sometimes it is okay to get angry about something. You know, if you feel like it, you know, if it offends you, or if you know, you're protecting someone you love or something like that. But the problem is dark side users get consumed by anger and rage. It consumes them. But I don't think it's inherently wrong to get angry.
Yeah. And that's kind of, maybe sometimes it's good to not sit back and let the Force do things. Sometimes it is important to step up and try and make a difference. You know,
sometimes it's okay. It's a human thing, or a mortal thing, to fear also, which is another, you know, Yoda has said, fear is the path to the dark side. You know, like, fear is also something that we all feel. And, you know, to articulate that through, you know, the Force, I guess the philosophy of the Force would actually be more realistic, and also be a little bit more pertinent to these current times. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest, back in the day when Star Wars was coming out, you know, good versus evil, that was the epic thing. And, you know, in today's day and age, that's still relevant. But I do think that, especially with the rise of anti-heroes, you know, you see people like, you know, Deadpool and Deathstroke being as popular as they are, Red Hood being as popular as they are. There is this notion of, you know, good is, there's a spectrum when it comes to good, if you will. I think that the Jedi, you know, order ending is an ominous way to tease that maybe there is some type of, you know, balanced approach coming. And, I mean, bringing Rey and Kylo together, I didn't even think of that. Because we like to think that, you know, Kylo is just, you know, done for. Because my man out here helps, you know, slaughter some Jedi younglings or whatever, some Jedi that Luke was raising. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't know. But that's a great theory, man.
Let's not judge him ahead of time. We don't know exactly what went down. I mean, most likely he murdered everyone.
That's a good point.
But, and he killed his father, too.
That is true.
Who knows what's going on behind the scenes?
I think a lot of people also, you know, have kind of expressed the fact that they don't think it would, you know, be a situation where Kylo echoes his grandfather, in the sense that, you know, he, you know, makes a complete 180. Some people say, well, Anakin already did that. Why would Kylo do that? But I think, you know, in terms of family is also a strong theme in Star Wars. And I also think, you know, cycles are very strong themes within Star Wars. And it is entirely possible that Kylo does echo the transition of his grandfather and coming back to the dark side. I think, or the light side rather, or at least, you know, coming to terms with the evil within. The only difference with Kylo is we're seeing him, like, you know, at his darkest point. You know, with Vader, you know, we do see him at his darkest point, but we definitely don't see, like, the Vader that's out there in the galaxy killing Jedi all over the place and hunting Jedi and being, you know, I mean, he destroyed the planet in A New Hope, but, you know, by the fifth movie, you know, he's aware of his son and he's like, yo, I need to reforge that relationship. You know what I'm saying? So with Kylo, we see him at the depths of his fall, and you know, it'd be interesting to see him climb out of that, because balance isn't necessarily something that the Force also needs. We also need to obtain balance within ourselves. And maybe Kylo needs to rebalance himself as well. But Luke bringing together, damn, that's a good ass theory, bro. Like, I'm sitting here like, that would that would do a lot to say that Luke is the chosen one. You know, I mean, Rebels. You know, a lot of people. And let's be real. At any point, anything from Rebels can be overwritten by the movie canon.
Yeah.
But you know, them saying, you know, Obi-Wan believing him to be the chosen one. Dave Filoni, who runs Star Wars Rebels, he's a really important part of the Star Wars formula over at Disney. And I wouldn't be surprised if he knew a little something in saying that. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he knew a little something. I mean, Rogue One had Easter eggs for Rebels. I mean, that should say enough. You know, Saw Gerrera is a Clone Wars character. Dave Filoni heavily involved in Clone Wars. You know, that was, you know, him and George Lucas were basically, you know, vibing and talking about theories and plans for Star Wars together on that show. And Saw Gerrera made an appearance in Rogue One. So it's entirely possible, man. But any last thoughts in terms of this theory, man?
I need some Star Wars in my life. They need to bring this out. This movie needs to come out right now.
It's been too long, man. It's been too long, and you know, I've the more I think about this theory, the more I kind of like it, man. I mean, even, you know, Count Dooku, who had already fallen to the dark side, he actually alludes to Anakin and Obi-Wan in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, that, you know, they don't know everything that they can know about the ways of the Force. And Count Dooku has fallen to the dark side because he got consumed by the lore of the dark side. But he did imply that there was more you can learn. Even Palpatine, you know, he's a liar and he is somebody who is manipulative. But he did say that, you know, there are things that the Jedi can't teach you. And there are, I mean, obviously, you know, Dark Force users out here using Force lightning. You know, so there is this notion, this theme within Star Wars of there being, you know, other ways to do things. You know, even Yoda, you know, not wanting to train Luke initially, saying he's too old. You know, things like that. And, you know, him ultimately training Luke. Obviously, the Jedi needed to change. And it did. And maybe it's time for the Jedi to move in favor of balance. But anyway, guys, what do you think about our random Star Wars ramblings on this episode of the Spectacular Spoiler League? Let us know what you want to see from the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. Let us know who you think the chosen one is. Do you think Luke is going to bring balance to the Force? Do you think it'll be Rey? Do you think it'll be Kylo? Do you think it is Anakin Skywalker that is the chosen one? And by all means, guys, show some support to the Spectacular Spoiler League. Hit the notifications on the bottom of the video, below the video, I should say, to turn on notifications and be aware of when we drop videos, and you can come through, comment, and we can chat with you guys. Also, drop us a like and subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. And we also want your membership in the Spectacular Spoiler League. But I'm Hazy Rome, Deep Voice, over on the other end of the Hall of Spoilers. We're getting out of here. We'll see you guys in the next one. We need to go get some kyber crystals and make some lightsabers, man. We need to step our Jedi games up right now.
Down.